indelible in the hippocampus is the laughter, the uproarious laughter between the two, and they're having fun at my expense.
Dr. Christine Blasey Ford's testimony last week, in which she accused Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault, was a trying moment in the confirmation process. Kavanaugh denied the accusations, and an FBI investigation did not corroborate those claims.
But this week's Time magazine cover story claims Dr. Ford's testimony was a watershed moment for victims of sexual abuse, saying in part, to young men, it was a message that drunken violence could shadow them all their lives. And to victims, Ford's testimony was an invitation to speak up. Haley Sweetland Edwards wrote the cover story and is here with us to discuss the issue. Haley, good morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. That image on the cover, her lasting impact. First of all, the image is lasting, but also you write that she is lasting and making this historic moment.
Right. I think that it's important to remember in times like this that history isn't linear and cultural moments don't happen, linearly. Yeah. It's you have these big moments. You have her step forward and sort of display the kind of personal courage that we saw that doesn't necessarily, I mean, we may see Brett Kavanaugh confirmed today, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that was a failure or that we aren't having an important conversation as a country that we wouldn't otherwise be having.
There was an important comment that we heard over and over again, is that we believe her and yet we believe him, that somehow she was mistaken about who it was that attacked her. When you look at that, do victims of sexual assault come out in a better place?
I think absolutely. I think that, right now, after her testimony, 45% of those polled believed her compared to 33% who believed him, which doesn't seem like maybe that striking of numbers until you think about 1991 when Anita Hill came forward. And in that, almost 60% of Americans believed him. Mm-hmm. Over 24% believed her. So we are at a different moment. I mean, people are coming forward. People are speaking out. You've seen this outpouring of support and anger.
At the same time, at this moment, there are a lot of women who are enormously disappointed.
Absolutely. I think that, this kind of goes back to the first point, that these things don't happen step by step. When we look back on, Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat in 1955, 9 years later, we finally got the Civil Rights Act. But that doesn't negate her importance of that act of personal bravery.
That it's a process of change.
Exactly.
Along the idea, though, that victims of sexual assault, that they were heard, but are they fully listened to? Because I kept hearing there's not corroboration of her story. Rarely is there ever when there's a sexual assault. So is this still a victory for those victims to say, come and speak out? Why should you if you can't corroborate that story?
It's a really difficult problem generally about sexual assault. It almost always happens in a room with one other person, another, maybe a friend of a person. If you think back on your own life of scary things that have happened to you, who else was present? How would you be able to corroborate those moments? And those are conversations that we need to be having as men and women in our country of, what is acceptable? Where do we set that standard? One thing is for a criminal trial, of course, for due process and things like that, and there are standards of evidence. And another thing is for job promotions and bestowing honors upon people.
But either way, the debate continues and will for some time, I'm sure. Haley, we thank you. Haley Sweetland Edwards.
Thank you.
Thank you.